Hello and welcome to another episode of Snakes Territory. I'm Jesse Friedman, and that's Jack Sommers next to me. Jack, how are you on this Thursday evening?
Well, there's no baseball to watch tonight. I would like to have had another game to watch. We'll have to wait till Friday night. Friday night may be the last major league game we get to watch for quite some time.
Snakes Territory is always presented by Fox One, and yeah, Jack, It's the thoughts are getting real of like, what am I going to do with myself when there's no more baseball on television? It will be difficult. There will be trying times coming up. So enjoy what we have left of the World Series for sure. Our task on today's episode, Jack, is a fun but also kind of scary one. If you missed our most recent episode, we talked about Jim Bowden's top 50 free agents list. We went through that list, talked about a whole bunch of different names that could make sense for the Diamondbacks this offseason. And you, our lovely listeners, requested that we do a similar episode, but talking about trade targets, which is something, Jack, that I think you and I are always hesitant to. We're hesitant to go too far down that road because free agents, there's this simple nature to it. We know that these players are on the market. We know that they're going to sign somewhere. We have a sense of what their value is going to be. We can make educated guesses on that front. Whereas trades are just more complicated. It requires two teams to make a trade, and it depends a lot on teams' internal evaluations of players, information that we're just never going to have access to. So before we jump into any of this, I guess we just want to say on the front end that maybe I'll just speak for me, Jack, and say I feel like I don't know what I'm talking about when we go down this road. But these conversations will hopefully still be entertaining, will be interesting, and we're gonna try to stick to at least some names that we think very much could be moved this offseason based on some of the reporting we've seen.
Yeah, I would echo what you said there as far as a lack of surety about anything that we're about to talk about. It just goes with the territory when you're talking about trades. I mean, we just don't know what other teams are asking for. I mean, sure, the Diamondbacks are going to do due diligence, and they'll pick up the phone and they'll call Team A and ask about player X and say, "Hey, are you guys interested in moving him?" Um, and the other team will say, "Well, not really, but we could be based on what kind of offers." And they just have these very tentative discussions. Sometimes they're just told flat out, "No, we're not moving that guy." Other times they're like, "Yeah, well, we're willing to listen on this." And from there, it really just goes to whether or not there's a good match. Now, sometimes a team has such an obvious match with the Diamondbacks where we can kind of speculate a little bit more deeply. I think we kind of all felt like there was a strong possibility of a trade with Toronto prior to 2023 because they did have so much catching depth. And the D-backs did have excess outfield depth, and the needs of those two teams were just so obvious that that was definitely kind of exactly which outfielder was going to go and whether or not they would get, Gabby, or if they would get Kirk or Jansen. But the bottom line is a catcher for an outfielder was obvious there. And so they were frequently highlighted as a potential trade partner. The problem with pitching is that everybody needs and wants pitching,
Yeah.
including the teams that you're trying to pull a pitcher away from. I mean, 25 teams all need pitching. 30 teams all need pitching. So it's harder to get.
Yeah, and I guess when we're thinking about potential fits with the Diamondbacks, you also have to acknowledge that the Mariners are just always a potential fit, just because of the Jerry Dipoto Mike Hazen connection. Oddly enough, I don't think we're actually going to talk about any Mariners pitchers on this episode. Maybe we'll circle back to some names just in case. But where we wanted to start on this episode, Jack, is a name that there are credible reports of this player potentially being on the move this offseason. And it's no secret that the Diamondbacks would love to have a pitcher of this caliber. We're talking about Hunter Greene of the Cincinnati Reds, a pitcher who was hurt for a portion of this past season. Jack made, I believe it was 19 starts when all was said and done, but he was very, very good in those 19 starts, a 2.76 ERA in 107 and 2/3 innings, a 3.28 FIP. His strikeout rate dropped considerably, or sorry, his walk rate dropped considerably from where it had ever been in his career up to that point. It was in the 6% range after being around 9% for his entire career entering this season. So this is a premium asset, Jack. I mean, this is a potential true frontline starter for a number of years. Hunter Greene is under club control through 2029. He has 3 years, 42 million guaranteed for the next 3 seasons, and then there's a pretty reasonable club option for 2029 after that. So you're talking about 4 years of a frontline starter, Jack. That is certainly the type of asset the Diamondbacks could use. Obviously, they would have to pay handsomely for it. And based on the reporting that we've seen, there was a story from Mark Sheldon over at MLB.com talking specifically about the idea of trading Hunter Greene. And he made it pretty clear, Jack, that if the Reds were to do that, they would be looking for offense. That was a big issue for them last year. And the D backs don't have a whole lot of players they could trade to provide offense, but there's one player that kind of stands out that we've touched on before.
Yeah, I mean, when they say they want offense, I mean, they're not looking for potential offense from a prospect that may or may not be a good major league hitter. They want proven major league offense. The Reds had a 90 OPS plus last year and a 119 ERA plus. Their
Crazy.
offense was woeful. Now, if you look from August 1st onwards, Alex D'Agostino just recently wrote an article over at Diamondbacks on SI, and he pointed out that the D-backs lineup was very top heavy. The top 4 put up a 141 WRC plus. The numbers 5 through 9, 72 WRC plus. Now we know who those 4 are: Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, Gabriel Moreno, and of course Geraldo Perdomo. All right. So when you look at those 4 players and you consider all factors concerned, they're not going to trade Carroll, and I don't think that they would consider trading Perdomo at this point. They have got 2 years of ARB, 2 more ARB control years of Gabby, or 3. I'm sorry. They don't have any other catcher. I don't think they would trade him. There's only one potential guy that, if the D-backs were going to pursue Hunter Greene, that the Reds would be interested in, that the D-backs might consider giving up to get him, and that would be Ketel Marte.
Here we are again talking about another potential potential fit with Ketel Marte maybe going to another organization. Again, I don't think either you or I expect the Diamondbacks to make this move, but there was credible reporting over the course of the summer that this was something the D-backs would at least look at over the offseason, given some of the conflicts that happened during the year. Uh, it makes some sense on paper, Jack. Like, again, you and I don't know internally, how do the D-backs feel about Hunter Greene? How do the Reds feel about Ketel Marte? I mean, those are really, really important factors. But on paper, it makes sense. Like, you put Ketel Marte in the middle of that Reds lineup. I mean, that is a massive, massive upgrade for them over what they were getting in the infield last year. And you put Hunter Greene at the top of the Diamondbacks rotation. I mean, that is a massive, massive upgrade over what they'd be getting in their 4th and 5th starter spots as of right now. They clearly have a need in that regard. The question, of course, is like, is this fair? I mean, we don't see 1-for-1 trades of this magnitude like ever. I mean, it just seems really, really difficult to get 2 premium assets to just line up perfectly. It's a fair 1-for-1 swap. I think, I know you've looked into this, Jack. It seems like Hunter Greene is probably the more valuable asset of the 2, at least on paper. I think I always side with starting pitching being more valuable than a position player. But there also is a steadiness that comes with Ketel Marte. I mean, just the fact that he has been consistently an elite player for longer than Hunter Greene has been an elite pitcher.
Yeah. One point of note, Green's injury last year was a groin injury. He injured it in May. Looks like they might have rushed him back. He re-injured it in June and missed almost 2 months. So that's where, why he missed 13, 14 starts and only made 19. I agree with you 100%. I mean, look, not that Ketel doesn't carry his own injury issues, but when he's on the field, he's going to produce. And the problem with pitchers is if they get hurt, how does that impact their ability to pitch? It's usually a bigger issue. Not always, but usually. But I don't know if you want to throw up those calculators that I did.
Let's do it.
If you go ahead and look at Hunter Greene, now keep in mind in 2024 he was a 6 WAR pitcher. In 2025 he was a 4+ WAR pitcher. So I'm already very conservatively regression to the mean, all of that. Starting with 4 WAR in 26, then 3, 2.5, and 2. So that comes out to 11.5 WAR over the next 4 seasons. He's under contract, an escalating contract of $8 million, 8.33, then 15.3, 16.3, and then 21. Total $61 million for 11.5 WAR. The value of that is about 72 million. Okay, so his over under is 42.
That's a
I
pretty
have a
big
math
number.
error. I have a math error in my table. Excuse me.
Is it? I guess the total value there is supposed to be a little higher.
Yes, it is. I can fix that in 2 seconds.
I
Sorry
think so.
about
That
that.
would be 103.5. I think is the total value, and then I think the over under is accurate at 42.5. So
Yeah, I
that
don't
would
know how I
be.
got the 72 in there. That's not right. I apologize, folks.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us. But yeah, so $42.5 million of surplus value is basically what you came up with, Jack. So
Correct.
that is the idea there is that relative to how much money he will make over the next 4 years, Hunter Greene will be worth $42.5 million more than that, which makes sense. He's one of the best pitchers in all of baseball again when healthy.
Right. Now, if we can pull up Ketel's by comparison. So Ketel comes out with a positive net value of 33.5 million, which is actually less than Greene's. That's based on 14 WAR. Now, when we talked about Ketel's value not too long ago, I actually used a little bit lower projection. I had like 12.5 WAR. I went up to 14 because that's what Fangraphs had when they did their in-season contract value article. So I said, all right, well, let's just bump him up to 14 projected WAR. It comes out to 33.5 million. So that's 9 million less than what we're seeing on the over undervalue for Hunter Greene. But that goes back to the surety factor, right? Ketel Marte is more proven over the longer haul to be able to produce at a higher level. So I think, 1-for-1, that would probably be a pretty fair deal. I mean, Greene's technically worth more on paper, but there's a higher risk factor with almost any pitcher. And so that maybe evens that out. So, I mean, if you want Hunter Greene, that's what it's going to cost you. You're not getting Hunter Greene for prospects. You're not getting Hunter Greene for, Jake McCarthy and or Alec Thomas or anything like that. You want Hunter Greene, you have to come up with some real offensive value. And that's what it's going to take. Now, I don't think that trade gets made, but we're asked to entertain these trade possibilities. We're limiting our trade targets to guys that are actually credible reporting saying that there's a possibility they could be traded. I mean, we could talk about 50 different guys, but we're narrowing it down to where we could find reasonably credible reports from credible sources saying, oh, this guy might be traded.
Yeah, I mean, in Hunter, yeah, those reports exist for Hunter Greene, and it's clear that the Reds would have on offense, and it would be hard from the Reds' standpoint to do any better than bringing back a player of Ketel Marte's caliber. I mean, he is one of the best offensive players in all of baseball. I'm trying to think though, Jack, just from the Diamondbacks' perspective, like, say the Reds are willing to do this. Like, is this something that you would want to do if you're Mike Hazen? I mean, it's such a fascinating trade. Again, we don't really see moves like this ever get made. They're just so hard to pull off where both teams feel like they're getting better in the process. I mean, having Hunter Greene at the top of the rotation would be enormous. On the other hand, not having Ketel Marte in the middle of the lineup would be a huge loss. And you and I did some digging on the Reds roster. Like, is there some other position player that the Reds could throw in to kind of backfill for the D-backs? I don't think there's anyone that really makes sense. Like Matt McLain a couple years ago was a really intriguing young asset. Then he got hurt, and this past year he was basically a replacement level player. I don't know. I mean, maybe you want to bet on him turning things around, but even a couple years ago, the expected stats there weren't so great. Um, but on the other hand, Jack, like if the D-backs are in a position where they're pretty willing to trade Ketel, like based on what's happened in recent seasons, some of the conflicts and whatnot that have happened, like that's something that they're maybe not locked into doing, but definitely interested in entertaining. I don't think you could do any better than getting Hunter Greene. I mean, Hunter Greene is the type of asset that you actually could sell that move to your fan base. Like maybe it's hard to argue one way or another like, oh, this makes the Diamondbacks way better or it makes them way worse, but at the very least Hunter Greene is a pretty big name and would help the Diamondbacks in a really big way.
I agree. That I mean, you would be hard pressed to do better than Hunter Greene on the trade market if you tried to move Cattell. So, I mean, there's a potential match there. We'll see. I don't think there's a whole lot of history between the D-backs and the Reds for
Yeah.
making moves. I'm trying to think off the top of my head any major trades, and I don't believe there's if there were very minor ones. There's always that to factor in.
Yeah, well, there you go. Hunter Greene for Ketel Marte straight up. The people wanted us to talk about trades, and that's about as interesting as a trade could possibly get.
Be
Uh,
careful what you wish for.
yeah, right. Well, we have a number of other names that we're going to talk about. Some guys where there's at least some reporting that maybe they could be on the move this offseason. But first, we're going to transition over to our DraftKings player spotlight. Well, Jack, one of the big X factors for the Diamondbacks going into 2026 is, of course, Jordan Lawlar, who struggled for much of his big league career, but showed some positive signs down the stretch. And recently, we got some interesting news on him positionally, where he is playing some winter ball and has been playing some center field as part of the process. So, be interesting, Jack, to see how he looks out there.
Yeah, we had already heard that Jordan was likely to get some reps in the outfield during winter ball when it first became known that he was going to play winter ball, and so he's listed actually on Lacey's roster as an infielder, but his very first game was played in center field. They were supposed to play again Thursday night. It got rained out. Of course, they've been dealing with the aftermath of the storm Melissa. Dominican Republic was not hit as hard as the other areas of that region, but the schedule has just been decimated. But so he's only played in one game. But it's very important to note that he's a potential option in center field. I think with his speed and the possibility for having good range is really interesting. I mean, who knows if he's able to get good jumps and how quickly he can adapt. But there's been a lot of middle infielders that have gone out and played center field. Some have made successful transitions and some have not. If you remember, Ketel Marte went from shortstop out to center field, kind of struggled in center field, and ended up landing back at second base. But while we're talking about Jordan Lawlar, as we go into further trade discussions, his name's going to come up a lot more there too. So increasing his positional flexibility has advantages for the D-backs if they keep him, and it has advantages for his trade value if they want to move him.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, obviously, Jack, as we discussed earlier in the show, the World Series continues to go on, and if you've never bet on baseball before, it's a great time to do that over with our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. Jack, this week we have something that has nothing to do with this year's World Series. It actually is looking ahead to 2026. What do you got?
Well, I thought it was interesting the odds that were out there for AL pennant, and the Yankees are the favorite at plus 300, and the Blue Jays were like the fifth or sixth most favored team at plus 1,000 for 2026 AL pennant. And my thought process here was, teams that get this deep in the World Series, they get a big financial windfall. Now, Toronto is already like fifth in payroll in MLB, but they've only got one real core position player that's a free agent. That's Bo Bichette. And then from their starting pitching, Chris Bassett, and Max Scherzer are free agents. But so that it's not like they're irreplaceable names there. Bichette would be a tough one to replace. He's a below average defensive shortstop, but the guy can sure hit.
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised to see them just bring Bichette back and maybe slide him over to second base on a more regular basis. I think, whether or not they're willing to pay what he might be able to get on the market, but I think other teams will look at Bichette's defense and say, hey, I think this guy needs to move off short anyway. So long story short, I think that the Toronto Blue Jays are a better bet than plus 1,000 to repeat as AL pennant winners. They have a very solid core of players, and they're going to be able to add to that very handsomely in free agency during the offseason, thanks to a World Series windfall.
Well, there you go. The Toronto Blue Jays to win the 2026 AL pennant at plus 1,000 over on DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers, this one is for you. Bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get paid out $300 in bonus bets instantly. This is what October baseball is all about. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, pass-through of per-wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
We are back here on Stinks Territory, presented by Fox One. Jack, let's dive back into some other trade possibilities. I guess we're kind of going in reducing order of team control. So Hunter Greene, of course, very attractive with 4 years of club control. Next, we have a couple of guys with 2 years of club control remaining. We'll start with a name that I think we've already mentioned on the show, Sandy Alcantara. He has 2 more years of club control. His 2026 is, of course, guaranteed. Then there's a club option for 2027. Obviously, Jack, he was a big name at the trade deadline. The Marlins didn't wind up moving him, frankly, because he just didn't really have a very good year. Although I guess he did show some positive signs down the stretch.
Yeah, he was better over the last 2 months of the year than he was in the first 4 months, but he wasn't so great in those last 2 months of the year that, it really makes you feel like, oh, Sandy's back. There was some talk of that. He had a nice little stretch, but I think his final 2 months combined weren't anything that would, remotely look like what he was before the injury. There's on the other hand, and I say this again and again as also cautionary tale when it comes to what to expect from Corbin Burns and others coming back from Tommy John. It takes time to fully get your footing. And the second year back is, if they're going to be really good again, is usually when that happens. Very few guys come off Tommy John surgery and are really good that first year or close to what they were previously in their first year. If they do approach it, it comes later. And so that's what you're kind of buying on Sandy.
Right.
Now it's like 17 and 21 million. It's like 38 million. I don't know how to project him. I think I projected him for 2.2 and then 2 or 4.2 total, just to make the spreadsheet come out to about even over under. That's a total guess, guys. I have no idea what to expect from Sandy Alcantara. Neither does anybody else. But there is a possibility. I mean, if it's 17 million and you decide not to pick up the 27 option, then there's that. You're only locked in for 1 year. You do have the option for the second year if he's good. So that's kind of where some of his value comes into play here. But the bottom line is he's got to get back to being at least a 3 or 4 WAR pitcher to make it really worthwhile. Because don't forget, we're not talking free agency. We're talking about giving up player assets. Now, in Sandy's case, you're looking at giving up a prospect. Maybe it's a pitching prospect or two, a pitching prospect plus a hitting prospect. I mean, despite the fact that there's a contract there, he's not going to come for free. So what player would need to go back? It's impossible to speculate who the Marlins would be interested in. This is where we get really stuck on trying to speculate on, say, well, I would give up this guy or I would give up that guy. I'd give up, Ashton Izzy for Sandy Alcantara, or I'd give up Daniel Egan for Sandy Alcantara. I'm just throwing names out there. The point is that the only thing that matters is who are the Marlins interested in and whether or not that guy is above or below the line in the sand that the Diamondbacks have. And it's just impossible to speculate on that stuff.
Yeah. I think where I land with Sandy is that contract by itself, as you said, is significant. I mean, if you were to trade for Sandy Alcantara, most likely you're bringing him in for 2 years and $38 million plus whatever assets you trade to get him. And yeah, that second year's a club option. So if the first year's really disastrous, then you're not locked into that second year. I guess that helps. That eliminates a little bit of risk, but still, 2 years and $38 million is not a small amount of money for the Diamondbacks. And I don't think the D-backs are going to have enough money, Jack, to make a trade like that for Sandy Alcantara and also go out and spend similar money on another starter. Like if you make that trade for Alcantara, he's probably your big name starter that you acquired over the offseason. Maybe you got another kind of filler guy to take over the number 5 spot, something like that. And just sort of naturally, where my mind then goes is like Merrill Kelly. Would you rather have Merrill Kelly for 2 years and $30 million, if that's what it takes, where you don't have to give up any trade assets at all? It's just money. Or would you rather bet on Sandy Alcantara's ceiling and trade some assets in addition to probably paying him 2 years and $38 million? It's a hard sell for me. I think I would rather just go get Merrill Kelly and bring him back. And I think there's a decent chance that Merrill Kelly is just as good, if not maybe even better than Sandy Alcantara the next couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that, pardon me while I look this up and double check, the one thing about Sandy that, you can't ignore is that he did get all his velocity back, or basically all of it. Sorry, can't get that.
He went deep. He also pitched deep into games, especially toward the end of the year. I mean, you look at his numbers in August and September. He went 6 innings or more in every single start but one from the beginning of August to the end of the year. So he is pitching deeply into games consistently. It's just the run prevention for him was not at all in line with where it was pre-injury.
Yeah, I agree. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that, is the upside still there? Right? He averaged basically his same fastball. Like it was 98.1, 98, 98.1 in the 3 years before the injury. This year was 97.7. That's the same velocity.
Yeah.
Like you said, he goes relatively deep into games. So can you get a 5 or 6 WAR? I mean, that's the other aspect to this. Can you get a 5 or 6 WAR season out of him? I mean, like with Merrill, you're never going to get a 6 WAR season.
No.
But you could with Sandy.
That's true. I'm looking at his last 8 starts to finish the year. I know I'm kind of cherry picking where where this span starts, but he finished with a 2.68 ERA in his last 8 starts, 52 strikeouts to 10 walks, a 3.62 FIP in that span. I mean, I'm not going to say those are like peak Cy Young Sandy Alcantara numbers, but they're not all that far off from that. The ceiling with him is definitely higher than with someone like Merrill Kelly.
Okay. All right. Well, that's Sandy.
That's Sandy. Yep. Our next guy is another guy with 2 years of control, Jack. I'd say there's been fairly widespread speculation about this player being on the move for a while. MacKenzie Gore of the Washington Nationals. Gore has 2 more years of club control. Jack, what do the spreadsheets tell us here about his value?
Well, his 2 years of club control are cheap arbitration control years. He's expected to make 4.7 in 26, and I just threw 8 million out there for 27. If he has a good year, that goes to 10 or 11. But it's 12, 13 million, 14 maybe, or 15 if he has a very good 26. Maybe that 2027 arbitration number goes up. But just figure roughly 12 to 15 million dollars is the max you would have to pay for MacKenzie Gore over the next 2 years. He's not been great, but he's been good, and he's a fairly decent bet to be at least league average. I have him projected for 2.5 WAR in each season, a total of 5 WAR. Well, that's worth 45 million, and if he's only making 12, it's a over $30 million, $32 million over under value. All of a sudden, that dollar value actually is, in range of Ketel's value. Now, the Diamondbacks aren't going to trade Ketel Marte for MacKenzie Gore, but it just shows that, the value of years of control at arbitration wages, even for a guy that's just a little bit above average, makes that guy super valuable on paper. So, MacKenzie Gore has, give or take, 30 something million over under net value. That means that he's going to cost you some serious prospects, right? The Nationals aren't going to give him up unless they get Jordan Lawlar and Daniel Egan, something like that. I mean, it's going
Yeah.
to cost you Lawlar and a really good pitching prospect, or Ryan Waldschmidt and a really good pitching prospect. I mean, you're giving up 2, maybe 3 players for one, and 2 of those guys are going to be out of your top 5.
He's such a fascinating pitcher, Jack, because on one hand, there are days where MacKenzie Gore looks like the best pitcher in baseball. I mean, his stuff is on that level at times. I mean, he averages around a little over 95 miles per hour with his fastball. There aren't a lot of lefties out there who can do that. But then, you look at his numbers over the past 3 seasons combined, even though his strikeout rate is high, he has a 100 ERA plus over the past 3 seasons, exactly league average. And what really stands out to me is he doesn't pitch deep into games. He really never has. Over the past 3 years, he's made 89 starts and covered 462 and a third innings. That's an average of just under 5 and a third innings per start, which obviously in the modern MLB, like 5 and a third isn't the worst thing in the world, but it's not really what you're looking for a frontline starter. And if you're going to trade a Jordan Lawlar, plus something else from your farm system, getting a 5 and dive type pitcher in return doesn't seem all that attractive.
It might not, but I mean, 5 and dive is a standard. I mean, the the average pitcher in Major League Baseball goes 5.1 innings.
So it's basically league average then.
Yeah. So I mean, what's his actual number? So last 3, 89, 462. So do I have to use my calculator, or are you going to spit out that
I
number
got
in
it.
your head?
It's 5.2 innings is what he's averaged the past 3 years, which is just under 5 and a third.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, it's hard to say. Maybe some of that is due to lack of run support and not being on a good team, where they never have. There's the one team that almost always matches the D-backs for futility in the bullpen is the Nationals. There's that too. I could go over to Baseball Reference and look up his bequeathed runners. I bet those numbers are terrible.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's hard to say. Like if he gets on a better team, and if Mike Hazen rebuilds his bullpen respectably, then he plays on a team that maybe plays a little bit better defense. All of that could help dial him in, get him an extra out or two, here or there. But like you said, with his stuff, he's still, just finished his age 26 season. So, I mean, if I really need a starter, right, and I can't afford the guys, like, what if someone turns around and signs Merrill Kelly for 2 years, $40 million. It could happen, right? Sure, everyone wants to bring Merrill back, but what if some team just steps in and says, no, I'm going to overpay for this guy. And then all of a sudden the market goes kablooey and you have no choice. You have to go trade route. Well, you could do a lot worse than MacKenzie Gore at the same time.
MacKenzie Gore, if you just look at his first half of 2025 pre-All-Star break, he was an All-Star for the Nationals. Those numbers are pretty nice. 110 in the third innings, a 3.02 ERA, a 2.96 FIP. It looked like we were maybe getting the MacKenzie Gore breakout season that I think people have expected for a while. I think it could still happen. I'm not necessarily counting on it, but he's another guy where you feel like there's some ceiling there, even if your baseline expectation is, more of a league average type pitcher who's gonna miss a decent number of bats. Any other thoughts on Gore before we move on?
Let's move on.
All right, the names only get flashier from here, folks. Tarik Skubal of the Detroit Tigers. I know we kind of joked about Tarik Skubal on our last episode. Jack, I think you've already killed this dream for D-backs fans. I'm skeptical that it makes any sense for them. I mean, it's just 1 year of Tarik Skubal, and yes, he's awesome, but you would have to trade a decent amount to get that 1 year of Tarik Skubal. I'm not sure it's worth the D-backs betting on 2026 to that extent.
Yeah, and any thoughts or hopes that, hometown discount because the Arizona guy, forget about that.
No. Apparently the Tigers and him are like $250 million apart on extension talk. So I don't think there's
he wants $400 million or whatever.
Right.
Go ahead and put his calculator up there real quick. Just kind of interesting to look at this. So, he's been worth like a lot more WAR than this. But from a projection standpoint, you regress to the mean a little bit. He's also just had, 2 straight years of really high innings total, regular season, postseason. So if you look over time, I would almost bet the rent that he's going to throw less innings in 26 than he did in 25. So I haven't projected for 5 WAR, but he's only going to make $18 million. So his net value in that one season on paper is 27 million. So again, obviously you're not trading any of your top 4 positional players. You can't for 1 year of Tarik Skubal, but what are you going to have to give up? I mean, the Tigers are going to want pitching. You're going to have to give up 2 high-end pitching prospects. Probably going to have to give up your 2 best pitching prospects to get Skubal for 1 year. Are you willing to do that?
And I don't know. I mean, are you saying just 2 pitching prospects for Tarik Skubal?
No, just maybe throw in a position player prospect too. I mean, you're probably giving up your 2 best pitching prospects plus a position player. Whether it's somebody off the major league roster, like, an Alec Thomas, or is it, some minor league prospect that's in their top 10. I mean, even though it's only 1 year, you're giving up 3 players for Skubal. And of those 3 players, at least 2 of them are in your top 5. So are you willing to do that for 1 year? Now, I think the average fan, probably says, yeah, sure. Yeah, get him in here. Flags fly forever. But, if you're acting responsible as a general manager, that's a lot tougher pill to swallow.
I think it'll be a haul. I mean, if I'm the Tigers, I'm asking for the sun, moon, and stars. Like, he's Tarik freaking Skubal, who cares what your spreadsheet says he's worth? He's Tarik freaking Skubal. I want Jordan Lawlar and Daniel Egan, and I mean, like, that's probably where I'd be setting the bar if I'm the Tigers. Like, just take your top prospects list and scoop up the top 3 or 4 names, and that's your asking price. Or so, I mean, obviously it'll vary team to team, but I think it would be really hard for the Diamondbacks to pull this off. Maybe there is a package that would entice the Tigers. I don't think it's going to make sense for them to make that move, though. Really, I mean, if nothing else, because Tarik Skubal, like Sandy Alcantara, as we discussed earlier, he's going to make a lot of money next year. So it's not like you're just trading those assets. You're also like really adding to your payroll in a significant way as well. Hard to imagine that making sense for the D-backs.
Okay, moving on.
We have one more big name to get to, and then a couple of smaller names that we'll list off real quick. We're going to hit one last quick ad break, though. We'll be right back here on Snakes Territory.
This episode of FT is brought to you by Huel. Cheers.
Cheers.
We got a new Huel edition here, the Daily Greens. I've got blueberry, lemon, and thyme. You've got?
I got myself peach and hibiscus. I love peach. This is delicious. Fuel for the go, man. And this is really good for your body. It's really good for your systems. Anything that has greens in it, especially from Huel, is pretty fantastic. This will get you going, a little energy, a little boost, and keep your insides feeling well too.
Yeah, developed by registered nutritionists and dietitians. Few vitamins, minerals, and superfoods. Only 25 calories, 4 grams of fiber, only 1 gram of sugar. That's the goods. Of course, we still love the Huel Black Edition. I got chocolate peanut butter. How you doing?
Strawberry banana is delicious.
Let's go. Huel makes healthy eating simple. They also just launched into Target stores nationwide. Try both products today with 15% off your purchase for new customers with the exclusive code FOUL at Huel.com/foul. Use that code and fill out the post-checkout survey to help support the show.
We are back here on Snakes territory. Jack, our next name, another pitcher with just one more year of club control remaining. It is Freddy Peralta of the Milwaukee Brewers. Why would the Brewers, after making, at least getting to the NLCS in the postseason, why would they turn around and trade their best pitcher? Because they're the Brewers, and this is sort of what they do. They have these great players, and then when they're a year away from free agency, then they trade those players and bring in other players, and somehow it just works. They win 90-something games every year. But Freddy Peralta, Jack, I mean, he's been a good pitcher for a while, but especially in 2026, he had a 2.70 ERA, made 33 starts. He's been pretty durable over the course of his career. Another really, really attractive pitcher.
Yeah. The one concern with Peralta is similar to Gore is he actually doesn't go deep in games, though. If you look at average innings pitched per start, it's quite low. Alex D'Agostino once again wrote about Peralta just recently and highlighted that fact that, the efficiency issue is there. But if you can pull up his little calculator, if you have that one there,
here we go.
He's only going to make $8 million in 2026. And he had worth 5.5 WAR in 26, 2.5 the years before that. So we're just kind of knocking it down to 3.5. He comes out to over $20 million, $23 million over under net value. That's still pretty valuable. Now, and coming off a career season, 17 wins and all of that. Again, the prospect price, not going to be high as Skubal, but it's not going to be cheap either. Again, Freddy Peralta may cost you Jordan Lawlar, plus a pitcher, or Freddy Peralta may cost you Daniel Egan, plus, a Tommy Troy or somebody like that. Are the Diamondbacks willing to do that for 1 year of a starting pitcher, without control? I mean, we included these 1 year control guys because they're credible stories and rumors out there that they're at least listening on those guys. But the truth of the matter is only 1 year control guys don't necessarily fit where Mike Hazen wants to be.
It's pretty rare. I mean, how many times have we seen Mike Hazen trade for a player with just 1 year of control? I mean, Josh Naylor, obviously, this past season. We haven't really, to my knowledge, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, we've never seen Mike Hazen really spend big on a guy who only had 1 year of control remaining. It just has not really been in his nature to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, look, when he traded Slade Ciccone for Naylor, I don't think any of us said that they were spending big to get Naylor.
Right.
Although Ciccone turned out, the Cleveland pitching factory turned him into a useful major league starter. Of course they did. Lourdes was 1 year left before free agency, but he was the extra player in the Moreno deal, so you can't really count that. So yeah, I mean, it's not his MO. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. Another one that feels pretty far-fetched to me. I mean, I actually think I don't know if I would say it's guaranteed that Freddy Peralta is going to get moved, but I think there's a decent chance, just given the Brewers' recent history in this regard. It seems like even despite all the success that they've had, their payroll is just not really going to increase that much. And so this is just kind of the way they've done things, and how we figure they'll continue to do things moving forward is just, you have this great pitcher or whatever, that's great. Once they're a year from free agency, we're going to trade him like we did Corbin Burns and Devin Williams and so on and so forth. So I think it's very possible Freddy Peralta gets moved. Whether it makes sense for the Diamondbacks, probably not. I guess with these 1-year guys, Jack, the one scenario I could see is frankly Mike Hazen seeing that like maybe his leash as general manager is getting a little bit shorter and feeling some pressure to go out there and really go all in on 2026 in a way that he hasn't felt in the past.
Well, the 1-year guys are more attractive that way too, also because of the looming work stoppage in 27.
Yeah.
And, I think, you're going to hear a lot of complaints about people colluding, because collusion, because teams aren't going to want to spend for 27.
Yeah.
So, that could impact this year's free agency and trade market quite a bit.
Now, where I think the Diamondbacks would love to land, Jack, as enticing as some of these names are, and as much as like, Hunter Greene, 4 years of control, like that would be pretty cool. What I think the D-backs would love is to get a young starting pitcher who has a lot of control left, who is going to be affordable for a long time. I mean, that was the Jazz Chisholm Zach Gallen trade a few years ago that panned out, I think, really well for the Diamondbacks when all was said and done. Those moves, though, are obviously very hard to make, and they're even harder for us to try to predict before they happen. I mean, how many young pitchers are there who have shown a little bit of promise, but maybe could be available via trade? I mean, we don't see those types of assets moved all that often. However, we used a search over at StatHead that I know you made yesterday, Jack, just looking at some of the rookie starting pitchers from 2026, who are some guys who are in a similar position now as Zach Gallen was back in 2019. They've gotten a little bit of a taste of the big leagues, but they haven't really cemented themselves as really solid big league starters. Maybe the asking price isn't quite as high as it would be if they did that over a full year. And we have at least a few names that we can run through here. Cam Schlittler of the New York Yankees. We talked about him at the trade deadline. I don't think the D-backs were going to get him for Gino Suarez, and I think it's probably equally unlikely that they will get him this offseason. Another name we talked about then, Logan Henderson of the Milwaukee Brewers. He's made 4 big league starts, has a sub-2 ERA, got hurt down the stretch of the season. He's another guy theoretically could be in this category. Chase Burns of the Cincinnati Reds. Surface level numbers there aren't great, but big time stuff. Really, really impressive prospect pedigree. He's gotten a little taste of the majors. I don't know. You feel like anything along these lines could be possible, Jack?
Well, the Burns thing is interesting. Chase Burns is interesting because the Reds do have so much pitching.
Yeah.
So that's maybe an area where they, if they don't move Hunter Greene, maybe they go the other route and move somebody like Burns.
Chad
I
Patrick.
also want to say real quick, I just want to add, if anybody out there listening can point me to a tweet or a blog post that you made highlighting Zach Gallen as a trade target prior to the deadline in July 30th of 2019, I'll buy you a hat. Okay. If you said this is the guy that we should get, and you were willing to give up at the time your number one prospect, Jazz Chisholm, or anything close to that, I'll buy you a hat if you can prove that you actually saw that coming. I say this basically to just point out, to emphasize Jesse's point about it's just impossible to predict who the Diamondbacks may be most interested in and who they would target, and if the other team would be willing to give him up. I mean, you just get into this territory. It's so unknown. We can throw a bunch of crap up against the wall, but it becomes really pretty meaningless.
I could just keep listing off names here, Jack. Parker Messick of the Cleveland Guardians. He made 7 starts this past year. Looked really, really good. Some guy named Trey Savage of the Toronto Blue Jays. He shows up on this list. But yeah, I'm sure he'd be available via trade after what he did in Game 5.
Didn't you propose Gino for Savage at the trade deadline?
I think that thought might have crossed my mind. To be clear, I was not saying the D-backs could totally get that guy, but we were just sort of going team to team, like what teams would maybe want Gino and what young pitchers do they have that would be enticing. And yeah, Trey Savage's name may have come up at that point. Now we see in retrospect why maybe the Toronto Blue Jays weren't willing to do that. But yeah, we could go on and on trying to figure out a deal like that. As you said, the reality is those types of trades are really impossible to predict. There's really no way for us to make any progress on like a trade proposal that has any meaning to it or any substance to it at all. So we won't go too far down that road. But hopefully all of you enjoyed us embracing the crazy hypotheticals and at least talking about some of those other bigger name starters who really could be moved at some point this offseason. Will be interesting to see what happens. Well, thank you again to all of you for being with us on this episode. We really appreciate your time. As always, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, be sure to click on the bell to receive notifications as well. Leave us a comment here on YouTube. We always love hearing from you. You can find us on social media. I am at Jesse N. Friedman. Jack is at ShoeWizard59. Our show is at Snakes Territory. And as always, you can find Jack's work over at si.com/MLB/Diamondbacks/on-SI. Did I get that right, Jack?
Yeah.
There we go. Jack, any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Well, I do want to just add real quick that, we do love reading all the comments. And I would like to encourage everybody that listens to go ahead and pop in your trade proposals in the comments. The only thing I'm going to ask you to do is whatever you think the cost is going to be, pause and add more, because it's always going to be higher than what you think it's going to be. So, but I want to see your trade proposals, because look, the power of more brains looking at this. I'm sure you guys all have lots of great ideas, and we welcome them. I hope that we can see a couple of possible proposals that actually make a lot of sense. But up what you're willing to give up.
Yeah. I always find it more enjoyable to critique other people's trade proposals than come up with my own. I just find that to be more enjoyable, a little bit more stress-free. But yeah, we'd always love to hear from you in the comments. Be sure to do that. We'll try to interact with you all there as best we can. Thank you again to all of you for being with us on this episode. We really appreciate it, and we'll be back with another edition of Snakes Territory very, very soon.